It is indeed another day of worship. I am so blessed that the monitor screen have grown so large. There's one monitor screen here. Avoid going on your right-hand side. How do we start such a wonderful teaching from the Lord? One time, someone asked me, would you like to have a blessing or would you like to receive a miracle? Would you like a blessing or would you like a miracle? That gave me something to think about, you know. Because how do you call a particular thing, a particular person, or a particular incident to be a blessing, and a particular thing as a miracle? Well, as for me, blessing is the things that I am receiving, I am spending time with each and every time of my life. But there are moments when you don't only want to be blessed, that you want to go beyond being blessed, because you know you are already blessed. The very fact that you're able to open our eyes, we are able to open our eyes in the morning, sad to say if people don't realize that that's already a blessing. You know, when my back hurt and I was not able to move, I realized, my goodness, the very fact that you could just jump out of bed without even having to hold on the railings just to be able to stand up. It's a blessing. But sometimes when we just get to do it naturally, we thought it's natural. There is nothing natural in this world. Everything is supernatural. Especially to the eyes that is able to see the beauty of the Lord. And you know what? But the Lord is not going to be teaching us blessings today. The Lord is going to be teaching us miracles. Because He is not only the God that is able to supply the very needs that you think you need for this moment. He is the God that is able to go beyond what we need. Beyond what we could even imagine or think of. He is the God that is able to make all those things that seem to be impossible possible. He is the God that is able to surpass our understanding, our expectations. Go beyond. That's how our God is. Our peanut brain sometimes cannot handle the ability of the Lord, but the Lord is saying, I'm going to teach you miracles because I'm a God of miracles. And today, we're going to be talking on how it is to walk on water. Because I know each and every one of us is being positioned by the Lord for a greater purpose. Probably you're sitting there right now and you're thinking, really? You did not only sprout out of this world just because you need to consume a space and then eventually live in the world and then die. Do you really think that's just your purpose? No. There is something beyond that. That's the reason why the enemy is trying very hard to snatch us away from it. Because you've got a greater purpose than what you see. And the Lord is trying to teach us today that He is a God of miracles. In the gospel, in the 5 gospels, the Lord have taught us, which was one of my favorite, was the feeding of the 5,000. And the Lord, when He fed the 5,000, He only used 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. From the supply of a boy that willingly gave it to God. And when that particular miracle happened, they said, the Bible scholars said, that it is the biggest miracle that Jesus has done. Because the 5,000 that they were talking about only talked about the man. Because during those times, women and children are not really counted. That's the generation, the culture during that generation. So the 5,000 were only talking about the man of that time. And they were saying, this is the biggest miracle. And while I'm meditating on this, I was telling the Lord, they're wrong. Because the biggest miracle is the cross. What, 5,000? That's just one church. when Jesus died on the cross, that's the biggest miracle. You know, when you see yourself in the mirror, I hope you don't see yourself as a blessing. Do you still see yourself in the mirror and say, what a miracle? Don't you reckon? You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, you know what I prepared today? I look at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, what a miracle. Hindi miracle, ha? What a miracle. Wow. Is this really me, Lord? Wow. You really can make miracles, God. I cannot imagine even looking like this on a Friday morning. You know? All the more thinking to stand up after a few hours of sleep. But our God is a God of miracle. And today, the Lord wanted to teach us a miracle that He has done after He has fed the 5,000. The Lord still continued making miracles. And it was taught in 3 books. It was in Mark, Matthew, and John, when Jesus actually walked on water. A lot of people are saying Peter walked on water. But actually the main character in this particular word that we're going to be teaching today is when Jesus walked in water. Because I believe that each and every one of us is a disciple in our own right. You say amen to that? Amen. You know, when you say the word disciple, a lot of people say, ooh, wow, that's too much. That's very religiously a quote for our religious people only. I'm just coming here to listen and I just wanted to visit the place. You see, when the word disciple is said, allow me to explain to you that it actually means that you are a follower of Jesus. Amen. And I believe if you're here, in your heart, whether you accept it or not, you are a disciple. Because you have come because you want to follow Jesus. Amen. You wanted to know how He is, who He is, because you wanted to imitate Him. You wanted to learn from Him. A disciple is a student of Christ. A learner of God. Amen. And that's who we are inside. So, today, you know, when I saw the photo of the morning worship, because I just got back from a flight, I saw the photo of the morning worship. Sometimes it's a challenge to actually be a follower of Christ when we don't really understand who we are following. And I think the reason why sometimes certain people take the Lord for granted or misunderstand Him because they really don't know who He is. I remember I heard someone saying that he was invited to a particular preaching. And for some reason, he missed the exit and he kind of reached the second exit, and across to his right-hand side was a big clubhouse. And believe you me, the clubhouse parking was packed. Because that day is, Fridays, no one is working. The clubhouse parking was jam-packed. So this visiting preacher actually makes a U-turn to head to the church where he is invited to preach. And as he goes to the parking, there were only few cars parked outside. You know why? When I heard this story, I realized one way or the other, we are all guilty of this. We would rather park our car, park our lives, bring our lives, our very being in certain areas where we think we could enjoy, we could invest, and we don't really want to go where the Lord is. Do you know why? Because you don't know who He is. And you just don't know what a big and wonderful God He is. You're missing. But today, I praise the Lord because we are all here. We're going to be able to understand what the Lord wanted to teach us. Though there are 3 Gospels that this particular event was noted down, we will read it on the Gospel of Matthew. It's 14:22 to 33. Can I please ask you to go through the entire story so we have the full scenario in the mind? If you can read it, please. Wow. But He sent the multitudes away, and when He had sent the multitudes away, He went up on the mountain by Himself to pray. Now You know, when you're reading the Word of God, it is always good to picture the scenario.
Amen.
Picture the scenario as if you're there.
Now the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost," and they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got to the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God."
Lord, thank you so much for your word once again. I believe that as we finish up with this preaching that you have prepared for us today, Lord, we will utter the same words in our mouth, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God, Lord." Because you always wanted to prove yourself to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You know what? The Lord does not need someone to prove himself to us. But for some reason, there are times when we still doubt who the Lord is in our lives. And just out of the love of the Lord to us, even if He is God, He would like to keep on proving His love, His ability to us. Why? Just so we could later on change our minds and say, "You know what, Lord? I really don't have anyone to go to but you. And indeed, truly, you are the Son of God." Allow me to take you into this particular story. This particular story unfolds in the Sea of Galilee. As I have mentioned a while ago, this is after the feeding of the 5,000. Can you hear me? Even if the microphone is like this? Yes. Okay. For some reason, it's not attaching on my ear. I'm sorry for that. So the story unfolds at the Sea of Galilee. And you know the Sea of Galilee, as they have already finished up ministering to this 5,000, the Sea of Galilee is a well-known place that it is in the portion of the Jordan Valley where the mountain is ranged, and in that particular area, on that particular area of the Mediterranean Sea, it is in an area wherein there is an unpredictable change of weather. So if you are the disciple of God, you have been ministering with the Lord, you have been accompanying God with His work, or you have already experienced the presence of God, and then all of a sudden the Lord tells you to go in a boat without Him and just go ahead to the next place that we are going to be going in a sea or a body of water, which you know always ends up having a storm, or it is very unpredictable. We don't like that, right? You know, sometimes we are thinking, I know, God, that you are an all-knowing God, and if you put me on this boat, and you know very well that there's going to be a storm, what are you thinking, Lord? Right? Because we have a relationship to God, so we talk to the Lord like, like normal human being. What are you thinking, God? Sometimes the Lord puts you in a position and He tells you to go in that area, and you're thinking, what are you thinking, Lord? You know that it's very unpredictable in this area. And as a human being, we don't like anything that's unpredictable. We don't want anything that we are not able to control upon. But you know what? The beautiful thing about it is that the disciples adhered to it. The disciples followed the Lord. It says here, immediately Jesus made His disciples get into the boat and go before Him to the other side, while He sent the multitudes away. And when He had sent the multitudes away, He went up on the mountain by Himself to pray. First things first, He sent His disciples to go ahead on the boat. Even when the disciples know that there's a possibility that in this area, it's very unpredictable weather, they still follow the Lord. If you are going to be working hand in hand with the Lord, you should know that He's an all-knowing God and He seeks obedience.
Amen.
They went and stepped into obedience. They rode on the boat. But one thing as well that I have noticed while I was meditating this, the Lord went on His own on this mountain and prayed. You know, in our lives, we will encounter a lot of victories. Believe you me, as you step into the ministry of the Lord, you will step into victory. The feeding of the 5,000 is an overwhelming victory. When victories arise, normally people go for a celebration, right? That's why there's a so-called victory party. Let's celebrate the victory. But you know what? The mentality of the Lord is different. Instead of coming there and waiting for people to tell the Lord, you really did well. I can't just imagine how awesome you are for being able to multiply those breads and multiply those fish. And instead of listening all these people's adoration and applause, he actually went on his own and he went to the mountain and prayed. Do you know why? Because he knows where to seek the presence of the one that actually gave him the ability to do it. Can you see the humility in the heart of Jesus? He knows that the very source of the victory is the ability of the Father and him. He knows that it is their team that actually managed to do it. The Lord will allow us to encounter victories over victories in our lives. Do I hear an amen for that? You will encounter victory in your life. But remember, in every victory, you go back to the one that actually gave you the source for that victory. In this life, in the normal world, we sit down and say, cheers to that. Yeah, I did well. But no, he said, you go ahead, I'm going to pray. Because I'm going to go back and give glory to my Father. And I'm going to go back and seek. You know, one thing as well that I have been meditating upon, because it says as well in the account of John. You know, when the Bible is being read, you have to understand that if it was Matthew, Mark, and John that wrote the walking in water, they were seeing the particular scenario where they are, right? For example, if it was me, Abon, and Lorena who saw the incident with the Lord, I would be writing the book according to my perspective, the way I see it. So Matthew was saying that they were sent out ahead by the Lord, but John gave a further detail on the book of John 6:15 to 17. It says, therefore, when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he departed again to the mountain by himself alone. May chismis si John. So John heard something else that actually the other disciples didn't hear. Apparently, these people are already trying to get hold of Jesus, keep it for themselves, and make him their king. It's very typical, right? Gosh, this person is going to be able to multiply meals, especially for people like us who love to eat. We don't want to let go of this person anymore. Let's make this person a king. We'll never go hungry ever. Jesus already realized it. Oh my goodness, these people are going to be keeping me for themselves. The Lord is not only a God of a particular area, of a particular group of people. He cannot be contained. And He does not want the glory. He is not there for the glory. That's why when Jesus perceived, He was already able to discern it, that these people is just going to keep me for themselves and make me their king. He departed and went to the mountain on His own. I don't need to be in the position. If you're going to be ministering for the Lord and you're looking for position, brothers and sisters, you might as well go in the mountain. So that you would realize that actually our God is not the God of position. Because what is the position when you are limited in a particular area? Because if you are being positioned by people, you are limited. You are limiting yourself. But if you are positioned and always intertwined with the Lord at all times, you are not limiting yourself. You can go places. And it says, now when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into the boat, and went over to the sea toward Capernaum. And it was already dark, and Jesus had not come to them. You know what? While I was going through this as well, and I'm studying this particular text, the Lord allowed me to go through the scholars' commentaries, and they said that in this particular incident, while Jesus was actually ministering, it's not in the Bible. This is what the scholars are saying, right? So I just want to be clear on that. They said that in this particular incident where the Lord was ministering, he received a message that one of the disciples was actually assassinated. But you know what? When I saw this commentary, it kind of hit me on my heart. Because as a person who is ministering for the Lord, you don't only minister when you are comfortable. You don't only stand up and minister to God. You don't only share the goodness of the Lord. You don't only bless people because you are comfortable. You don't only allow Jesus to use you because maybe the Lord is not gonna let you feed the 5,000 tomorrow, but maybe the Lord wants to use you to feed your one, office mate tomorrow. But being able to be used by the Lord does not only mean that you are actually perfectly okay. It kind of touched my heart because, you know what? There are times when you're standing for the Lord and you are ministering for God and you are not okay. That your heart was breaking. But you know the good thing about it is that when we say that He is the source, He's not only the source of the ability. He is the source of our encouragement. I believe that even amidst the victory, sometimes as a human being, because Jesus came in here as a human being, He was hurting, probably. If knowing that one of the disciples that He has been assassinated, He will be hurting. But He went to pray to His Father. Why? Because He wanted to destroy the spirit of despondency. Or should we say, the spirit that makes people really discouraged. Because in the ministry, the enemy will always want to inject something that will discourage you. If you wanted to follow the Lord, the enemy will always find ways, means, and people and things to make you feel like you cannot be encouraged to continue. Because you don't know what's ahead of you. Let's go back to our text. It says, now in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw Him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it's a ghost! And they cried out for fear. Can you imagine that? They were all in the boat. There was already a storm. And all of a sudden, someone walks on the sea. Isn't it enough inconvenience that you are in a boat in the middle of the sea and there's a storm? And then all of a sudden, someone will still come out of nowhere walking on water? But you know what? When I saw this, I was asking the Lord. The disciples were saying, it's a ghost. What does that mean? You know, sometimes seeing God and being able to spend time with God doesn't mean that you know God. That's the reason why as a believer, we never get satisfied. I'm not talking about contentment. Contentment is a different story. We are always content with the Lord. But sometimes people stop there and they think, you know what, I'm done. This is all I need to do with to know about the Lord, and I'm perfectly knowing God. These disciples have been working hand in hand with the Lord physically, but still they were not able to identify the Lord. That's the massive ability of God. There's always something that we could get to know about Him. And while He was walking on water, they never even realized that the God that they were serving hand in hand with probably looking as normal as you and me because he is in the form of human, is actually able to walk against nature. But that's the type of God that we are having. He is the type of God that could hold nature in his own very power. And while he was walking on water, they were saying, it's a ghost, and they cried out for fear. Typical human nature. When we are in a particular situation, we always think of what's worst. It would have been, wow, it's a provision, right? But no, instead of thinking, it's a provision, you will be thinking, it's a curse. There's another problem. There's really no hope. Typical human nature. Actually, that's a deception of the enemy because we always presume and assume in the state of doubt.
Amen.
Why are these people saying it's a ghost? Because it's not normal. But children of God, we are not normal. You are really not normal. We are beyond the normal things of this world. They call us weird, remember? Because we are supernatural. We have a supernatural God. So if you want to be normal, you're limiting yourself because you are made in the image and the likeness of God. You are made in the image and the likeness of God. When you say image, I don't have the same nose as you. I don't have the same ears as you. You're thinking, thank you very much. We're not talking about the feature. We're not talking about the physical feature. We're talking about the ability and the function.
Amen.
We are made in the image and the likeness of God. We are supernatural beings. That's who our God is, and He was able to walk in water. And so when you see God walking water, you don't say, what's that? It's a ghost, and be fearful. It's only a reply of those people who don't know the Lord.
Amen.
But the good thing is that eventually the Lord replied. And the Lord replied immediately. You know, our God always replies immediately when He knows we need an immediate answer.
Amen.
But we do not twist the Lord to reply according to the way we wanted. But in this particular moment, He knows that the situation requires an immediate reaction. And the Lord is saying, be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid. When you are in the middle of a situation, the storm is there, the unfamiliar things are there. The Lord is able to actually give us the assurance. The Lord said, be of good cheer. Cheer up. Because I think the disciples are already thinking, oh my goodness, this is the end of us. Now there's a storm, now there's a wind, and then there's a ghost. You ask for, and we are in the middle of the sea. Right? It's not as if they could run. But you know when there's a ghost, you feel like you want to run, but you can't really run, right? You can just imagine how they look like. It's like the movie of Panchito when they're trying to run, but they really cannot run. Right? But then the Lord is saying, be of good cheer. Do not be afraid. Hindi nila inabutan si Panchito. Sige na, ako na umabot. It is this, my father's generation. I just watched the movie during his generation. Because, you know, I love my dad. I spend time with him. Allow me to explain that. So the Lord is saying, it is I, do not be afraid. The Lord will always be able to apply encouragement and to tame our hearts. Amen. The Lord is not the God that likes you to be shaking. You know, sometimes with people, you always look at them and thinking, let them worry, so at least they know. Let them worry, and then later on I'll tell them. You know, we enjoy it when we see people shaking, but our God is not the God that likes us to live in fear. So automatically when He saw that there was great fear upon His disciple, He said, be of good cheer. It is I, do not be afraid. It is a command of the Lord. There are certain things in our lives that we see, we do not understand. Even when it is already Him, we still cannot identify that it is Him. When it is already coming from Him, we still do not identify that it is coming from here. from him. But you know what? God is a faithful Father. He is a very kind God. He is such a gentleman. He will tell you, Zen, be of good cheer. Do not be afraid. It is I. And I believe the Lord speaks to us and tells us, it is I. Because when you are facing a situation like that, and you know that it is the Lord, you know there is something wonderful that's going to happen. Because He's a wonderful God. And then what Peter said, it says here, and Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. You know what? On the boat were several disciples. Right? There were several disciples inside the boat. And I'm wondering, though Peter is really well known to be the one that's really outspoken, Peter is well known among all the disciples to be the bold one, always talking about something, you know, always speaking his mind, always trying to, ano yun, parang kilala ko yun eh. You know, always saying something. And sometimes even though when he's not sure, he just wants to try it out. Sometimes we are like that with the Lord, right? Just because, you know what? We wanted to just say it freely. But it's good because, you know, the Lord loves our variety. And I would like to also see that there's a great beauty in the character of Peter. Because he's not boring. Imagine the rest of the disciples are just there on the boat and, you know, like, oh, okay, probably they're thinking, oh, it's the Lord. But Peter said, no, there's a storm, there's a wave, there's something happening. I'm in the middle of the ocean now. My God walks on top of the water. And I say, if you can do it, allow me to do that too. Are you that type of heart that says to the Lord, oh, so you walk in water. Can I do that too, Lord? You know, as a child, I don't know if you see that in your parent. That sometimes when your parents are doing something, you're thinking, I want to do that too. That's why they used to say, as a parent, you should be a good example to your children because whatsoever the elders do, the kids like to do the same thing. And I can see the childlike mentality of Peter while he sees the Lord walking in water. And he says, God, I want to do that too. It's the same thing in a ministry, you know. A lot of people could be there. There's probably around 80 of us here. And then you see the Lord doing something. There will be someone, not all, that would say, can I come and do it like you do? Can I come and heal like you healed? Can I come and teach like you teach? Did Peter ever walk on water before? No. Did you preach before? No. Did you heal before? No. Do you want to? Amen. Peter was on the same state. He never walked on water before, but he wanted to try it because he saw that God is able to. But he said, if you command me to come to you in the water, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you in water. You know what? The Lord is no longer there presently in the flesh. Now to say, come. Come, Mark. The Lord is no longer there. But what is the command of the Lord now is in His Word. If the Word of the Lord says in His Word it is true, it will come to pass. Amen. What is the command of the Lord now? It is no longer, of course, for us who hear the Word of the Lord or who has a relationship with God, we can hear His instruction because He is a God that's alive. May not be in the flesh, but we could hear Him in our spirit. He speaks to us. If you don't hear the Lord, tell Him, God, they hear you. I should be hearing you too. So remove all those things underneath those ears. Because the Lord speaks to His people. His sheep hears His voice. That's the word of the Lord. And it says, if you command me to come to you in the water, he asked the Lord. And you know what? When your will is aligned according to the will of the Lord, He will tell you, come. It is the will of the Lord to show Peter that he could do the same thing he did. He is not the type of God that says, you know what? Stay on the side. What were you thinking? Stay on the boat. I am the only one that's able to heal. I'm the only one who's able to multiply. I am the only one who can make miracles. Who do you think you are? He's not that type of God. He is the type of God that can make you do what He is doing. He's the type of God. That's the reason why He said in His Word, as He is, so are we in this world. As He is, so are we in this world. So when Peter decided to walk on water, the Lord said, "Come!" Only for those people who desire, they'll be able to experience. Amen. Because the rest of them stayed on the boat and they were just watching. You could stay there 10 years, 20 years, 30 years and watch. But watch how people would show, how God would show people what they could do. We don't want to be just people watching. Because we're more than that, right? So we're not going to be staying in the boat. We're going to be like Peter. And so He said, "Come." And Peter had come down out of the boat. He walked on water to go to Jesus. They used to say, to experience the power and the ability of God, you have to get out of your comfort zone. Get out of the boat. Sometimes you just wanted to stay there. You think that's the best place for you already. But the Lord is telling you, I am not inside the boat. I am outside the boat. Do you want to experience being where I am? Come out of the boat. And Peter stepped in and walked on water, and he went to Jesus. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, can you read that for me, please?
But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me.
It is impossible to please God without faith. When Peter actually stepped out of water, he stepped out of faith. It was a step of courage and a step of faith. But you see, brothers and sisters, life is not perfect. We're not going to be too hard on Peter because it's not easy to get out of the boat. But there's a lesson that we all have to learn here. When Peter got out of the boat, I'm sure it was not easy. But since he heard that the Lord was saying, come, it makes it easy for him to do the things that are impossible in the sight of man. You know, that's the reason why it's good to hear the Lord. Because when you have the hearing ability of the Lord, if you hear God speaks, you're really going to be able to do it. Because when you don't hear the word of the Lord, it's going to be challenging to do something. Do you hear me? Amen. Do you get what I'm saying? Amen. If it's only a person telling me something and I don't hear the word of the Lord, it's going to be like, But when you hear the word of the Lord saying, come, though it looks impossible, you will do it. But you know what? The enemy will always be there to try to shake you off the faith that you have already stepped upon. Do you think following the Lord would be the easiest way in this lifetime? No can do. The world is owned by the enemy. This world, the prince of this world is the devil. You are living in a world where the prince is the devil. And you think you can walk just like that without him challenging you? If you're the type of person that's saying, you know, when I didn't know the Lord, I was not having challenges in my life. Praise the Lord. You know why? Probably you are in that direction where the enemy is trying to get you to. That's why there's no challenge. Because you are on the same wind, the same direction of the wind. You are not going against the flow. But in here, when Peter wants to do something that's the will of the Lord, trying to do the things of the Lord, the enemy actually wanted to show him that no, you can't do it. And there's a lot of intimidation. I know that each and every one of us has a desire and a heart to do something for the Lord. I know in your own little way, or maybe big ways, in big dreams, or big desires, which the Lord honors. But then the enemy will always want to sway you with some wind, sway you with some storm, try to put you down. And you know what? During this time, then Peter did not focus on the Lord. Peter did not focus on the Lord. He focused on the wind. And when he focused on the wind, he sank. What are we trying to teach here? What is the Lord trying to teach us here? The enemy will not fail to put certain things upon our way. On our direction of being able to experience the power of the Lord, the enemy will try to always intimidate us. The enemy will always inject problems and storms upon our lives. But when you focus to that, you sink. He was already walking when he was focusing on the Lord. But the good thing about it is that it does not matter if you sink, at least you experience. If you are the type of person that you don't even want to get out of the boat because you always wanted to be sure, pa-sure lang, because you wanted to be always in control, then you will not be able to experience. Sometimes it's good to sink.
Amen.
You know what? Sometimes it's good to sink. Sometimes we are very hard on ourselves. Oh, I already managed to step on that and then all of a sudden I failed and I no longer want to do it again. Why? It's good to sink because when we sink, when we actually fail, that's the time when we realize, you know what? I really cannot get my eyes, I should really not get my eyes off you, God. Because when I get my eyes off you, when I try to not listen to you, when I try to listen to all the things around me, I lose my way. I just don't win the game. I just sink. And that's what the enemy is trying to do. It's just like a hole that he would like us to sink deeper and deeper into frustration, into agony, into different types of troubles, relationship, financial, work-related troubles. He just wants us to sink on that when we could have gotten where the Lord wanted us to experience already. But the good thing about it is that these types of trials and tribulations, if you've got the right heart and the right mind aligned to the Lord, you will be able to understand and experience that you need a Savior. That's why when Peter sank, he called out to one Savior. He didn't say, Lorena, help me! I need deliverance. Pastor Avan, I need counseling. He didn't call for that. He called, Lord, save me.
Amen.
Don't call on people. They were called, the same people you're calling is calling to the Lord. Don't get used to second-hand blessings. Because our God is a God that is able to give us first-hand beautiful blessings and miracles. Don't you want to experience it? That it is His hand that actually held yours and pulled you out of that storm and pulled you out of that water. It doesn't matter if you sink, as long as it is God's hand that pulled you out.
Amen.
If you were holding someone else's hand when you were going out, you're in trouble. Because it will take you out and then it will drown you again. You know, the enemy does not give anything for free. His mission is to steal, kill, and destroy. He will kill you. That's the word of the Lord. And immediately Jesus stretched out His hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" You know what? When I was going through this, I realized the Lord really rebukes. If we are the type of person that does not want to be rebuked, then let us stand corrected now. Because our God is the God that rebukes. But the good thing about it is that before He rebuked, He saved first.
Amen.
He is not the type of person that hindi mo pa nga tinutulungan, you're not helping the person as yet, you're already saying, it's because you know what? You're really not listening. You're such a loser. You're not thinking, you know, you're already rebuking, you're already saying something else, and then at the end of the day you say, you know what, I cannot help you. If you're not going to be able to speak blessing and do blessing to the other person, just shut your mouth and don't do anything. Right? Because God, before He even rebuked Peter, He already saved him. He already helped him out of the situation. And then eventually He said, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Why did you even, doubted what I could do for you? You could have experienced it." You know, just a bit of testimony. The Lord has called me many years back in the ministry. But for some reason, I've always wanted to do things according to how I wanted to live my life. I wanted to be controlled by the wind and the seas. I was just speaking to Ate May yesterday, and the Lord reminded me, you know what? I feel like it was the Lord who was speaking to me when He said, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Because when we are sinking in all these things that the enemy wanted us to be in, we are actually operating in doubt and not in faith. Because if we are operating in faith, we will be stepping on the will of the Lord. But if we are not doing the will of the Lord, that only means that you are not believing that His will is good for you. You are believing that you think you know what's best for you. You think that that person actually thinks what's best for you and not what God thinks is best for you. That's why you don't go in alignment to His will. And you know, I'm thinking, it made me sit down with the Lord and say, I always ask you this, what did I miss? If we don't step into the faith that the Lord wanted us to step upon, you will not be able to walk and see where the Lord could take you. But the good thing about it is that even when you sink, the powerful hand of God can still lift you up and pull you into position. But the question is, what did you miss? Right? When I'm going back to that time when I wanted to just do my own thing, I'm thinking, I could have probably achieved something or seen something more wonderful than where I am now. But since I did not obey way back then, I missed it. I felt a pinch in my heart. But you know, the encouragement of the Lord is there. He reminded me, I am the Redeemer. I am able to redeem everything that you lost. And I am able to return to you everything. And I was telling the Lord, Lord, I just wish in my heart, I am back to 23 years old when I have the energy to climb mountains and declare your blessing upon those people up there. But now at the age of 40, I may not be able to do that. But since it is not me, but you that's working in me, I believe you're still going to be able to mightily use me. And so I submit myself to you. I don't care how many times I sinned. I just want you to be the one lifting me up again. And as long as it's your hand holding mine, I don't care where you take me. Because where you take me, I know it's going to be lots of fun. I know it's going to be loads of victory. And you know what? The good thing about it is that when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. You know, sometimes certain situation comes upon our lives just because the Lord wants to prove something to us. Just because the Lord wanted to teach us something. In this particular verse, in the Bible, there's a lot of things that Jesus has done. But there's a particular verse that says, after this particular thing happened, it is the only time that the disciples actually worshipped Him. And that's the only time that they were able to utter, truly, you are the Son of God. The word truly, it means while they were with Him, because you know what, this guy is a good healer. This guy is able to multiply food, let's go with him. But this time, they were able to see Him and say, indeed, truly, without any doubt, this is a Son of God.
Amen.
These wonderful things that are happening in our life, the challenges, the storms, the adversities that are happening in our life, take it as a blessing. Take it as a miracle of God to be able to show His power upon our lives. Because what the Lord wanted us to utter eventually is to say, Lord, you know what? I realize you are indeed God.
Amen.
Don't allow the enemy to allow you to miss that opportunity to say, you are indeed God. Just because you chose to sink. Right? Because there are choices. There are some people, they just want to sing. They did not manage to see anymore the saving power of God. But the Lord is saying, I am the God that is able to lift your hand and take you out of there. And by doing that, you will be able to say, I worship you, Lord. I praise you, God. You are worthy for me to wake up in the morning. You're worthy for me to come in the church. You're worthy for me to be able to lift my hand and praise. You're worthy for me to serve you. You're worthy. And I'm going to worship you because truly you are God. You're going to be able to get And you know what the good thing about this, as I wrap this teaching by the Lord? The beautiful thing about it is that the Lord is still going to be using the disciples. They are going to go to Capernaum to be able to do further, bigger ministries. If you're going to be experiencing the Lord now, the Lord needs you to experience these blessings, because as you experience them, these things, you could actually tell your story to people. Even up to now, we're still going through the story of Peter. Why? Magnifying Peter? No, magnifying the ability of God. When you experience God firsthand, you can go to Kathy and say, you know what, Kathy? Okay, that looks like the same storm I had. This is what the Lord did to me. This is what I have experienced. And can somebody fight your testimony? Because someone else out there needs to know God the way you know Him. Amen. Someone else out there needs to experience God the way we have experienced the Lord. You know, when sometimes you're talking to God, to people about the Lord, they could argue about doctrines. When I see people arguing about doctrines, I look at them and I stop. Because we don't argue doctrines. But you tell them your testimony. With the Word of God, you tell them your testimony. Who could argue about your testimony? No one can. And your testimony is the power of God in you. Let's all stand up.